gathering up. Having just come off the floor session, honoring the late Senator Bruce Anderson, I'm Erin Murphy. I'm the proud Senate Majority Leader. I'm going to begin this press conference talking first and foremost about how I feel, about what we've experienced here in Minnesota over the last number of months since early December. And I have talked with Minnesotans in so many ways, so this is a reflection in part of what I've heard. I'm so angry with the President, President Donald Trump and his deputies, Secretary Noem, Stephen Miller, and his enablers in Congress, the Republicans in Congress, and right here at home in the Minnesota legislature. I'll add personally that I feel fairly heartbroken that we are in a moment where our own government has come to the state of Minnesota with masks and guns, and we have lived through the most difficult of occupations that I could never have imagined. But paired with that anger and heartbreak, of course, is a deep pride and satisfaction in the response from Minnesotans across the state. We always refer to ourselves as the North Star State, and what Minnesotans have done from the ground up on their own, with their own voices and their own organizing, is to burn brightly as the North Star State in resistance, in peaceful action, and support for our neighbors across the state of Minnesota. And as I have talked with my colleagues across the country, they recognize that we're not just fighting for ourselves here, but really for the freedom we enjoy, the Constitution under which we live, and the republic that we know as the United States of America. I sometimes think we're the United State of America. We fought back with words of support and words of prayer. We shouted and we chanted and we sang and we blew whistles so loud that they were heard around the world, including, I heard them at the Olympics. I'm joined here today with my colleagues, with legislators who have proposals to restore and protect the rights of Minnesotans, to make sure that this can never happen again in Minnesota and that the perpetrators are held accountable. I'm going to start with the piece of legislation that will be heard tomorrow in Senator Lance's committee. And as many of you know, I am a registered nurse. I just renewed my license. After ICE agents shot and killed Renee Mecklengood on January 7th, agents refused to render aid to save her life. Not only that, they denied the pleas of a doctor who were there, who begged to care for Renee and to administer CPR. According to reports, Renee was in the car for 6 minutes without aid, and it was 8 minutes before someone started CPR. Alex Preddy was shot on January 24th. Again, a doctor witnessed what happened, and according to their sworn statement, they begged for access to Mr. Preddy because, like with Renee, agents weren't able or chose not to save him. They hadn't even checked for a pulse. I don't want to live in a place where authorities think their responsibilities include shooting people but not helping the wounded or dying, especially if they are the ones who caused it. That is an expectation for everyone in Minnesota. You shoot someone, you render aid. I feel that way about human life, about our country, and about Minnesota. It's our duty to assess the situation, learn from it, meet the moment, and render aid. That's the work we as lawmakers are starting today. I'm very proud to be joined by my fellow healthcare providers, the 5 of us, in authoring this legislation. I'm glad it will be heard tomorrow, and with that, I'll turn to Senator Port. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Senator Lindsay Port from Burnsville. My community is a place where masked ICE agents have kidnapped and assaulted my neighbors for 3 months as part of Operation Metro Surge. I'm here to talk about my bill to stop federal law enforcement from hiding their identities on the job. ICE agents have abused Minnesotans' trust at every turn. They're illegally swapping license plates, they've posed as delivery drivers, and pretended to have car trouble to lure people out of their homes and detain them, all while wearing masks, gaiters, and cowls to hide as much of their faces as possible. Our state law enforcement is prohibited from doing this. Federal agents are not exempt from this basic measure of transparency. When masked people wearing jeans and pseudo-tactical gear that you can buy on Amazon are jumping out of unmarked cars to drag people away, that does not build trust. That does not keep us safe. That is not the way of this country. Today in HHS, we heard from a healthcare worker who was followed home after leaving her work and boxed in by 2 cars of masked men with no identification who tried to drive her into oncoming traffic. This is an unacceptable outcome. ICE is destroying the trust that police departments across Minnesota have worked hard to rebuild in recent years. As legislators, we must do everything in our power to help communities and our local law enforcement work together to keep our state safe. We will not accept secret police in Minnesota, and Americans will not accept it in the United States. ICE agents must take off their masks and show us who they are.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Senator Elise Mann, Senate District 50. ICE agents roaming the hallways of our hospitals. Masked men walking into patient rooms without warrants, without identifying themselves. Masked men with assault weapons refusing to leave patient rooms when a physician needs to do a physical examination. ICE vehicles parked in no parking zones in front of emergency room doors. These are the phone calls that I have gotten from healthcare providers from across the state over the last few months. We also have heard of ICE agents swarming our elementary schools. Stories of 8-year-old, 9-year-old children crying, asking, are my buddies going to be taken away? Groups of community members encircling children at bus stops to make sure they make it to school and don't disappear by the end of the day. Childcare providers abducted, leaving their classroom of children without supervision. Legal residents of Minnesota going to their immigration court hearings and being abducted while following the law and playing by all of the rules. This is Minnesota in 2026. This is Minnesota in 2026 thanks to a federal administration whose goal is to purge people of color from our country. People with no criminal records, and people who are legally and lawfully present in this country. Our job as legislators is to protect people. It is not our jobs, as some of our Republican colleagues seem to think, to purge the state of anyone who isn't white. So part of our package of bills is to make hospitals, schools, daycares, colleges, and courthouses safe spaces for every single Minnesotan. You know, we have spoken a lot in these last few days about humanity, about recognizing each other's humanity. This word has been thrown a lot recently. And yet we are here today because we have to write new laws to remind the federal government, who has apparently forgotten about the humanity of certain people. We have to write a law that says that when you are at your most vulnerable, when at a moment you are nothing more than a body needing care or a mind wanting an education, at those moments, the federal government cannot come and abduct you. For the federal government to target spaces that care for the bodies of people, where mothers will hold their newborns for the very first time, where people will take their last breath. For people to be targeted at schools where we're shaping and protecting the future of this country, to target our children. What does that say about how far we have fallen? A society that cannot guarantee the safety inside hospitals and the safety of children inside our schools is not powerful. It is disgusting, and it is barbaric. We have already normalized lockdown drills instead of literature, and I hope that no one here is expecting us to normalize the abduction of our children also. Protecting these spaces should not be a partisan issue, but it is, because if it weren't, we would not be here today. So do not be fooled by those telling you that they are only taking the worst of the worst, because they are removing anyone with dark skin or an accent. And in doing so, they are harming everyone seeking care. They are harming our doctors, our nurses, our front desk personnel. They are harming the first and second and third grade babies inside of our schools. They are harming our teachers, our bus drivers. The only people not being harmed by this are the ultra-rich. And we in Minnesota have shown the world time and again that we will not stand for it.
Good afternoon. Today I am proud and motivated to join my colleague, President Bobby Joe Champion, as the co-chief author on the Minnesota Constitutional Remedies Act, a bill to create a civil right for victims of crimes and rights violations to sue federal agents who harmed them and their leaders responsible. President Champion and I both represent districts where Minnesotans were shot by federal agents. In each of those incidents, ICE and Border Patrol agents at the scene and their leaders in Washington lied about what happened, they lied about what they did, and about the victims of their violence. We all know the names of those three people: Renee Good and Alex Preddy in my district 62, and Julio Sosa Solis in President Champion's district. Beyond the obvious need for criminal justice, our bill would create a civil remedy for those victims and their families to have their day in court. And there are countless other names and stories the world doesn't know as well, of people dragged out of their cars and homes, handcuffed, tear gassed, detained without warrants, disappeared to jails, or packed onto planes without due process. Those victims include new Minnesotans here as refugees seeking asylum, people who had been here for years and who are in every stage of the legal immigration process, and many American citizens. We can't expect leaders like Donald Trump or Kristi Noem to give these people their rights. And so we will demand it by writing them into Minnesota law. And with that, I'll pass it to President Champion.
Thank you so much, and I am excited to be working on this with Senator Fateh. I will say this, the bill that we are putting forth creates a cause of action in state court that's broader and mirrors the federal civil rights statute by extending the cause of action to cover federal officials. This bill offers, as I mentioned, a broader remedy and would have a better chance of surviving the challenge because it provides a remedy against any persons acting under the color of law. This bill is helpful because it allows people to sue the federal officials and solves the problem that there's no meaningful remedy in state or federal court for constitutional harms caused by federal officials. As you heard Senator Fateh mention, we've been there and seeing individuals just blowing their whistles that have been dealt with very aggressively, or just using their cell phones in order to capture the moment. As you heard Senator Fateh mention, in my district, I was out there, and I saw the ICE agents, and I saw people's rights violated, and currently there's no remedy for them. This bill solves that problem and gives Minnesota a tool for remedy. Here's the last thing I'll say. In my district, when I was out there on that Wednesday, and I saw the aggressive acts of ICE, and they were violating the constitutional rights of the folks there. The story that was told by ICE was vastly different from what later came to be a reality. In fact, as you all have reported, and you know, that the individuals who were involved in North Minneapolis' incident, those charges were dropped. But guess what? Now they need to have a remedy. And this bill does that. Thank you so very much.
So I'm Ron Latz, State Senator from St. Louis Park and Chair of the Senate Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. I represent Edina and Hopkins as well as St. Louis Park and Senate District 46. I'm the chief author of legislation that would ensure independent investigative authority for the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in cases involving the killing of Minnesota residents by federal agents operating in the state. The BCA has a strong track record when it comes to conducting thorough and impartial investigations of officer-involved shootings, and for years has been a partner with federal agencies in investigations that happen here in Minnesota. What we have seen in recent weeks with the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, with the complete shutting out of the BCA from any part of the investigation of these incidents, is shocking. BCA Superintendent Drew Evans, who is a very well-respected law enforcement leader with only over 20 years of experience, has called it concerning and unprecedented. And it's completely unacceptable to the families of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, and it's completely unacceptable to the people of Minnesota. That's why the Judiciary Committee will be taking up this and other bills to hold ICE and the federal government accountable. We will make sure that Minnesota has a seat at the table when it comes to getting justice for Minnesotans. And my bill and the legislation discussed by my colleagues is critical to doing just that and to protecting our citizens and our communities from harm. This time, I understand we'll be opening up the floor for questions.
We already saw in the House yesterday there were multiple bills and committees already put on ice. Immediate 7-7 votes didn't move forward. Is there anything in this package that you presented you think actually which could pass the tied House?
You know, we are grateful here to have a majority, the Democrats do, and I and others, I am sure, are reaching out to Republicans to ask them to join us in our legislation, and we're going to pass measures. And I hope that the Republicans in the tied House understand that this is not a partisan issue. I know there are people that are trying to press this into a partisan issue, but this is an American issue. And Americans know what they've seen, and they want us to take action. And those who decide to create an alternative fiction about what has occurred will do that at their own peril. It is time, and we are joining together our caucus with anyone who will join us to make sure that we're putting in place laws and protections for Minnesotans' health, their safety, and their human and their civil rights.
To follow up Danny's question, are there any of the bills, any of these proposals you guys are talking about today that any of you have had positive conversations with Republican colleagues on that you think may stand a chance at?
Well, you know, I'm just getting started. I think we're all just getting started on this journey here from the legislature. So I personally haven't had those conversations yet, but I intend to, and I'll tell you why. Because this isn't a debate, in my mind, about immigration policy. This is a debate about enforcement tactics. And whether you're Democrat, Republican, left-wing, right-wing, middle-wing, libertarian, we should all be able to find common ground that the Constitution needs to be followed, that there are certain boundaries across which we are not allowed to go because they violate the First, the Fourth, the Fifth, the Sixth, the 10th Amendments of the Bill of Rights. Because search and seizure has restrictions. You can't do it unless there are certain criteria met. And so when you have people just asking, when you have agents just asking for identification or citizenship status without any legitimate basis for questioning that, that's unconstitutional. When you have them reaching for phones for people engaging in free speech and their right to observe, that's unconstitutional. That shouldn't be a partisan issue. We should all be standing together that there are certain lines under our Constitution, under our laws, that we will not cross and that we will not allow to be crossed, whether you're federal or state law enforcement. So I would be shocked, I hope shocked, if we don't get some bipartisanship on this.
Do you have any extra remedy built in? Mostly this is civil penalty. We've seen the federal government ignore so many court orders.
Well, that's a political question about their ignoring
Because it's
the.
been legal rulings that have been ignored. Is there anything you can do legislatively and legally to add teeth to
Well,
this?
look, we've got the courts, Mary, that stand in the breach, and the legal community that stands in the breach. I mean, I know that the Immigration and the Defense Bar has been activated since the surge started happening. Lots of networks going on, sharing of information, trying to get into the Whipple building to see clients, even when, the defendants or the people in custody there don't even know they've got lawyers. Going to the courts, but the judicial process is slow, and it's subject to appeal. So what we have lost is, I think, the common ground, the common understanding that we should be self-enforcing. This is a republic if we can keep it, if you want to go back to the founding precepts of this country. Well, this is where we stand up and say we are going to keep it. And, we can pass all the laws we want. We depend on individuals to stand up for their rights, and we depend on the courts to enforce those laws. And, I can't go force the federal government to comply with the laws. Ultimately, it's a social compact, right? That we all have to agree we're going to follow the law, we're going to follow judicial orders. And if we don't, then we have really lost what has made America, America. We're going to stand up to try to protect what is the most American about us.
Just to clarify, let's say these bills pass, ICE comes back, don't change their behavior, who enforces these laws?
State courts, federal courts, you go through the process. Ultimately, if you've got hooligans out there that are going to ignore all of that, then we have to stand up as we have been doing as people, as community members, 50,000 strong, marching proudly without violence, saying this is not who we are, and we're going to defend ourselves.
I have a question for Senator Mann on this.
Just briefly, when you talk, Mary, about the tools and what's the remedy, right now under federal law, even if you look at Section 1983, there is not a remedy for individuals to sue the federal government. It's usually for state and local officials. This is a tool. I want to speak to the fact that our desire is for ICE to leave and never to return. But if we do return, we want to make sure that we have tools in order to make sure that we can go into court, that we can that we stand on a solid legal basis for them to have to adhere. And when you can sue a person, an individual person, or an official, I believe that changes individuals' behavior because now you are responsible. It's sort of like as lawyers, we have malpractice insurance and others have all these other things because those are tools that people have in order to say, if you're not doing something correctly or appropriately, then there will be consequences. And here we think it is a travesty or a tragedy for individuals to come and just violate our constitutional rights without any sanctions or remedies. We want to give them that.
I've got a question for. That's not a congressional, if I can follow up, because I've been told that that is purely a congressional jurisdiction. The state legislature can create that action.
Yeah, we can create the action, and we will do everything that we can in our power in order to make sure that we put that put a bill forward that allows us to do that. That's why you heard me say in my comments that we believe that the bill that we're putting forward will pass scrutiny, is because we are making it so that it's a federal officials and not just ICE alone.
On the schools and hospitals bill, if I'm not mistaken, that says to educators and healthcare workers, if ICE shows up without a signed judicial warrant, you're not to let them in. If, a teacher or healthcare worker is in a position where, ICE shows up, they're heavily armed, they're not taking no for an answer, and they've got this, law that says don't let them in without a signed judicial warrant. What does someone do in that situation?
Great question. So we have had these conversations before, and we have told people not to put yourself in harm's way, right? We don't walk around as doctors with assault weapons. And so if someone is threatening you in that regard, then do not put yourself in any harm's way. What happens now, though, is that we have legal recourse. We have a bill, we have a law in place that says we can come back and hold these people accountable for acting unlawfully. And that's, if they are not going to follow the law, as we've talked about here, now we have something where we can go with that.
Senator Murphy, I have a question about 3688, do you anticipate that if that passes, that it would be able to hold up in court and that people would actually be able to sue, for example, in the case of Renee Good, for ICE officers not rendering aid? Because as we've said, it's very difficult right now for individuals to sue federal officers, and even when they can for negligence, my understanding is that they actually can only sue the US government and not the individual. So I'm just wondering, is this actually going to hold up and do what you're hoping it will do?
I believe yes. We're not treating the federal agents differently than we're treating anybody else in the state of Minnesota. I think that's an important and operative piece of the legislation. I'll also say this president has rendered the Congress nearly impotent. And as we watch federal armed agents come into the state of Minnesota and erode people's human and civil rights, put people in harm's way, Minnesotans are standing up in the streets, and they're asking us to stand up for them. This is a matter of states' rights. And while we can't impact, except for in next November, the makeup of the Congress, we can impact and bring relief for the people of Minnesota, and that's our goal.
Isn't this kind of all a uncharted territory in terms of the legislature? I mean, everybody's talked about potential conflicts with, you know, the state trying to regulate what the federal government is doing. Can they sue? Can they not sue? I mean, isn't this a position you have not found yourselves in before, trying to regulate, pass laws, getting at what the federal government is doing right now?
Isn't it the case that we are in uncharted territory, that there are federal armed agents in masks roaming the streets of Minnesota? Yes, that is uncharted territory. And I think that we have a very good case and smart lawyers here who understand that we are not impotent to respond, and we're going to act.
This morning, you asked.
This is a supremacy clause question. It's a federalism question, and the courts have some parameters they'll be looking at. No doubt in my mind, someone's gonna challenge it under that clause, and ultimately could end up in the US Supreme Court, which to me is a bit troubling in and of itself, because I've lost some confidence in their willingness to be an independent judiciary. But tomorrow, we're gonna have a constitutional professor of law who's a specialist in immigration law, a nationally recognized expert on these kind of topics, will be our opening testifier at the Judiciary Committee hearing, so maybe he'll have something to add for that.
Who is that?
His name is Muzaffar Shishti from the Migration Policy Institute. He's a NYU professor of law, runs their migration policy work there, a longtime national expert. He's worked in this space for many, many years, a widely published and respected person on these topics. So he'll have plenty to say.
This morning, local community members and nonprofits had a press conference asking for help dealing with the financial burden they've taken on. Is there dealing with ICE, you know, police overtime, et cetera? Is there anything the state can do, and if so, where's that money coming from? It's not a budget year.
You're right, it's not a budget year, and gratefully, we have a rainy day account and a balance because of the work that we did last session. And we know that people are struggling with rent, that small businesses across the state, and I was just in Wilmer where they reminded me that their small businesses are struggling as well. That is work that this legislature will take up all in due time, and I understand why people are coming and asking for help, because they need it. I think with that, we're going to head out committees. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.